When you look at Plant vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2, every single character has a reason to be played. Sunflower and Scientist heal, or you can revive your teammates. Foot Soldiers and Pea Shooters are the DPS of the team. Engineers and Roses can make portals so you can capture more ground for your team. Every character seems to have some reason to be. Now, while the Chomper isn't the only character that is an outlier in the Plant vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2 character roster, the main thing that sets the Chomper apart is that he has so high risk and so little reward. But why, you may ask? What makes the Chomper just that bad? Well, without further ado, let's get into why the Chomper is the worst character in Plant vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2. The Chomper, as a character, has 5 different ways to get vanquishes. You can vanquish with a spike weed, simply chomping off the spike weed, attacking from underground with a burrow, or doing a goop. Now, a character that has this many ways to vanquish his opponents overall sounds pretty good. Well, just because something sounds good doesn't mean it is good. The Chomper is a character that has 175 HP. Pretty bulky for a plant, right? Well, the trade-off for having such a high HP stat is that he has reduced movement, which basically means overall movement for the character is going to be very slow, and being out in the open will almost always lead to your death. Not to mention the Chomper's main source of attack is his Chomp. This move does 25 damage per Chomp, but the main problem arises that this is a close combat only move, which means the Chomper will have to be up close and personal to use his main source of attack. But his abilities make up for this problem. I mean, no, not really. Chomper's first ability is the burrow. This is when the Chomper goes underground. During this ability, the Chomper is immortal, as he cannot be hit underground. But the Chomper makes noise every time he moves, which means going in quietly is not an option for a character like this. Now, the Chomper has different unique abilities with this. Overall, when you're underneath a zombie, you eat the zombie if you hit the red little circle under them, which can lead to an elimination. But this move has different variations. For example, if the Chomper is eating any character with armor, or any character that's riding a machine, like the engineer on his machine, or the pirate on his cannon, instead of eating the actual character, he will eat either the armor or the machine. Now, if you manage to actually burrow on a zombie that has no armor on, or is not riding a machine, then you enter the second phase of the attack, where you have your opponent in the air. But while you're in this animation, if another zombie comes and shoots you, and you actually die, your opponent or the zombie will escape scot-free without actually dying whatsoever, and now you died in the process. During this animation, by the way, you cannot move at all or use any abilities, which makes you a sitting duck. But let's say, for example, you actually do manage to pull off a Chomp. Congratulations. Now you have reduced movement speed. Once you enter the third animation of the Chomper, where he's actually eating the zombie, you cannot use any abilities and you have a slower speed. Using this ability in a crowded area will almost always lead to your death, as you basically will have no ability to escape, and by the time you finally are able to, you will already be pretty much near dead. Now we're on to Spike Weed. Spike Weed is a trap-like ability the Chomper has, where he can set up traps in the area 2 at once to basically capture his opponents. If a zombie was to fall in the Spike Weed, it does 50 damage over the course of time, unless another zombie breaks it before it deals that much damage. Allows you to not use any abilities while you are hanging, and if a Chomper manages to find you in the Spike Weed, well, they can then eat you. And last but not least, the Chomper's last ability is the Goop, which is a purple ranged attack and is the only ranged attack the Chomper has. Overall, the move does not do that much damage. The main point of Goop is to stun your opponents so then they cannot use their abilities or be able to move very well for 3 seconds. Although while your opponent is in the Goop, they still can shoot back. Because of how Chomper's overall kit is set up, the Chomper will only actually be able to live for long periods of time or get the most value if he plays passive, because if he does not play passive, almost every single vanquish will lead to the Chomper's death. And while PopCap has tried to add variants for the Chomper to help with his problems, His overall basic kit is still just too bad to be saved by his variants. And while characters like the Unicorn Chomper and Twilight Chomper exist, one is not unobtainable and the other one is only available through a paywall, which basically means the only way you can get a somewhat semi-optimal Chomper is by paying money or by using a time machine. Overall, the Chomper is a very fun character, but the kit of the Chomper simply does not fit in PvZ's team-based game mode. In a 1v1, the Chomper is a legitimate threat, because you would have to literally guess where he is, and almost any interaction will lead to a death since there will be no one to save you. But in a team game, where you can almost always be saved, his low movement speed, the fact that almost all his abilities can be countered, and that he has to be up close and personal, makes him terrible in a team-based game, unless you're a fan of dying every time you make any play. Overall, this is why the Chomper is a terribly designed character, and why I think he is the worst Garden Warfare character to ever exist.